What's up? We got super bad news today, and it's completely my fault. Also, trying new settings on the camera. A couple people said it was like yellowy, so let me know how this is. I'm like almost about ready to drive the car, right? Start bleeding the brakes, getting the shifter in there, getting the pedals adjusted all correctly and stuff, and the clutch. And I find out that for some reason my clutch is like going down a little bit, and then it's like super hard to press and just kind of like has like a two-stage kind of feel to it. And I'm like, oh no, that's like something to do with the clutch fork or like the throw-out bearing, or just something that's not disengaging the clutch all the way from the pressure plate and the flywheel. I had to take the transmission out, the drive shaft, cross member obviously. So yeah, huge bummer. I already got the transmission out. I'm like completely disgusting. I'm being like under the car and stuff. I was like this close to being able to like possibly drive it, and then of course this shit happens. There's the transmission. Completely my fault. I'll show you what I did. So right behind the throwout bearing, there's a little bearing hub. The clutch fork pushes on the clutch throwout bearing hub, and then that spring holds it in there. So that's a brand new bearing. And then the bearing goes actually over the hub, so it's kind of like a press fit. So I got that on there and greased it up and everything, and now it works, so that's awesome. But the problem was I used a front wheel drive throwout bearing because they looked kind of the same, so I was like, well shit, I might as well just use that because I have it. And you know, I'll show you the difference. It's like that, and then the front wheel drive one, this is how skinny the front wheel drive throwout bearing is. So it's like that, and the clutch hub brings it out this far. So basically my clutch fork was pushing it all the way out and not pushing it far enough to actually press the pressure plate. So that's my issue. Definitely wish I did like 5 minutes of research online so I didn't have to pull the transmission again. I guess that would make too much sense, wouldn't it? So it took me exactly 21 minutes to remove the transmission, completely installed, like running and could be driving car. I started with the top bell housing bolts, and then did the starter, did the bottom bell housing bolts, and then the little rear wheel drive support on the side of the block. Did that bracket, took that off, took the cross member off, and then the shifter off in 21 minutes. So that's really not bad. That's why I love working on these little cars. It's just because everything is so much easier and just way less of a pain in the ass. So anyway, gonna bench the old transmission up there right now and totally get disgusting under the car, and hopefully this works right now. Trans is back in, hopefully for the last time. A little bit nervous to try out the clutch now that it all should work. Now it's the rear wheel drive throwout bearing with the rear wheel drive hub, so it pushes the bearing out closer to the pressure plate. That would suck if this wasn't the problem, but I know for a fact that it is. So I had to take out all the bell housing bolts, take off the starter and the clutch slave right there. Had to take that off. That's the clutch fork where that rubber boot is. And take out the speedometer cable, which was pretty easy. And then, yeah, the camera light's super blue right now, but take out the center support for the drive shaft, and then undo the drive shaft from the back of the car. So, yeah, pretty fun stuff. So, a little nervous to try out the trans, so hopefully it's all good. All right, try the clutch pedal. Oh, thank God that works. Wow. All right, so before it would be like nothing, 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 and then at the very end it would have like this little hard spot right there at the end. But this is good right now, so I'm gonna bleed it just a little bit more. I think there's still just a tiny bit of air in there. And then it should be good. Wow, that is such a relief. Such a stupid little mistake that I made. Cost me like half a day to fix and take care of, so take your time, do it right, do your research. Don't put a front wheel drive thinner throwout bearing on a rear wheel drive Corolla that needs a longer hub attached to the bearing. So stupid. Well, it just got real cheeky. Went ahead and put the hood back on and lowered the car down, threw the stock passenger seat back in, and put the shifter on, bled the clutch, and put some of the lug nuts on there. And I think I'm gonna try to actually drive this car, like back it up and backwards and forwards and stuff. Like readjust it in the garage. It still has no brakes, so I'm gonna test out the handbrake. I'm gonna record the very first time this car moves in 15 years under its own power. So this is gonna be kind of cool. I'm excited. So yes, after 15 long years, that was the very first time it has ever moved, and that feels really good. It was a pretty simple, straightforward process, a little bit of, trial and error with, because I didn't know the history of the car. Things were a little bit unknown on it, but I did it, so I'm very excited to drive it. The main thing I'm waiting for now is the Fortunato coilovers, like I've been saying for the past couple videos now. Everyone always talks about that Volvo thing right there. Apparently, the guy who used to own this place before I bought it was a Volvo guy, Volvo enthusiast. And that wall right there, where the TV is, there used to be like a calendar for all the customer cars and stuff, and there was like a lift in here too and everything. So apparently Volvos used to get fixed up in here, and now old crap Toyotas do. So the front suspension is all sort of standard how I got the car. I don't want to tear the front suspension down when I don't have the coilovers yet, because that wouldn't really make sense. I need to do the lower control arms, brake calipers, brake rotors, wheel bearings, front tension rods from T3, and the brake lines, just refresh basically everything on the front end of this car like I did with the rear end. So it wouldn't really make sense to tear it all down and then just put the stock suspension back on, like the stock strut and spring, with all that brand new stuff. So I'm just gonna wait for the coilovers to get here so I can throw all of this good shit on the front. So it's been quite a while since I filmed the first movement of the car. I did a couple things. If you could see down there, that little jumble of wires down there and that little sensor is the Mishimoto sandwich plate for the oil filter housing. And that is oil temperature and oil pressure. And I'm still waiting on my sensor to put right here in this hose. And I have the little wire right here that goes to the inside of the car. I put the gauges in, and I didn't film me putting these in just because I absolutely hate putting gauges in cars, just because it's always a hassle. But here they are. So I had to put them at an angle because the way they bolt in, they have these little U-shaped brackets, and if I put them horizontal, they wouldn't fit inside of the radio housing. So I had to angle them so the brackets would fit, but that's okay because they still look good, and I like the way they turned out. So oil pressure up to 80 psi, and coolant temp up to 250. And then we have oil temperature up to 300 Fahrenheit. So that is super rad, and I really like the way they turned out. Not going to be running a radio because I have a Bluetooth speaker, and I hate wiring. Not just like in general, but I hate wiring stereos, and it's not really what this car is going to be about. It is going to be a daily driver, going to drive this thing everywhere, but that is it. Also, I finally found a Momo Corsa Gen 1 horn button in good condition. So this is a Momo Corsa wheel, obviously, and then the matching horn button. So that's rad. I like it. And I only realize now that I have a high-pitched horn only on this car, so I had to replace it because the OEM horn actually was broken. I've never seen that before in a car. I thought those just kind of always worked, but it just didn't. So there it is. So the interior is pretty much complete except for I want to replace that passenger seat. But this is sick. I really like the way that horn button and the gauges makes the dashboard look sick. So I'm really just bored. I can't really film anything until the coilovers come in. I'm thinking about starting like a little bit of body work on the car. Not like paint prep or anything just yet, but there's a lot of areas on the car which need a little bit of attention, like that in the fender right there, that dent. Kind of see it right there. That's gonna be quite a pain because there's a body line right there, and the dent kind of just goes right across that body line. Also, it has the super typical 8.6 problem where the fender actually is crunched up by the door when you're opening it, because there's two bolts right there that get loose or just let the fender move in a little bit. And then so do the door hinges. The door hinges fail over time, and they just get a bunch of play in them. And that makes the door kind of shimmy a little bit and catch on this fender. So when you open it, it does that, and it's absolutely terrible. I saved the other side because it was happening to this side, but I think I managed to save it just in time because I can't really see anything, so that's awesome. Just readjusted the door a little bit, and then the two bolts on the bottom of the fender. Pretty easy fix, and which is super weird. There's also a dent in the exact same spot. Yeah, you could see it good right there on this fender. So huge bummer, but it's an old car. What can you do? A little bit of like inward dent there. I think that's fine. And then the biggest problem on the whole car is this on the lower door. Pretty big bummer, but you could just take the door panel off and then just kind of work it from the inside out. So I'm not too worried about that. So I guess that's kind of gonna be the what I'm gonna try to stay busy on while I wait for those seemingly unobtainable coilovers. And once I get those, I can start driving it. So I'm gonna drive it straight to an alignment shop. Anyway, that's it for now. Oh, I also missed this right here. There's a little bit of, I don't know if you could see that, but yeah, you can see that on camera. There's just a little bit of waviness in there, so I'm gonna try to work that out from the inside. But look how dusty this car is. It's crazy. Before I show you why I'm not gonna drive this car on stock suspension, look at this right here when I jack up the car. And it's not good what happens. It's pretty scary actually. Got the Gucci slips on. So pretty much, that's the wheel basically falling out of the car. And that's really scary. So yeah, imagine that happening when you're like on the freeway or something and you hit like a dip in the road and then the suspension just falls out of the car. Luckily I saw that before I actually took it out on the street, because pretty much infinite camber and caster adjustment. Just a short boring video. Can't really do much unfortunately, but it is what it is. Just waiting on shipping sucks, and the coils are hand built, so I don't know. I'm just bored waiting on stuff, and I'm like really getting anxious to drive the car. I think I'm gonna start doing more live videos, probably every week or every other week, depending on my schedule and stuff, like Saturday or Sunday night. So I don't know, tune into that. Look forward to it, I guess. More like question and answer stuff, or just like bullshit chatting around and stuff. I don't know, it's cool to interact with more people instead of just like reading comments and replying to like 5 of them. That's gonna be it, shorter video, but I didn't, this is my job and I don't really get paid at all to do this. So progress as it happens and not forced. So that's how it's gonna stay. Anyway, later.